And the government has cleared a credit of 3,000 crore rupees to enable Serum Institute to ramp up manufacturing. Have you received that money? How do you intend to use it? Does it help you scale up faster than originally planned?
No. So you will hear from the government officially finally what they give us. It is not going to be 3,000 crores. It will be less based on certain calculations we have done. Because I don't want to burden the government's exchequer and the taxpayers' money more than I absolutely have to. And so we have reworked some things to reduce that figure substantially, because now with this new policy that is there, that was announced subsequently to our discussions, with the opening up of the private market, we don't need to take the full 3,000 crores. It will be substantially less, and I won't announce how much that is. But I will leave it for the government officials to make that announcement when they actually give us that funding. And to answer the second part of your question, we will use all of it only directly for the raw materials and working capital requirements as an advance for the doses that they're going to procure from us over the next 3 months. So I would wait for them to announce that. It would not be proper for me to speak on that.
Let's spend a moment about US export controls. You'd put out a tweet to the President of the United States. We know that materials that have been flagged by you, like plastic bags, filters, cell culture media, are in short supply. What's been the response that you've received after you put out your public appeal to the American President? What are the specific raw materials that you're short of? How are you dealing with that situation? To what extent is it impacting your production?
So, you know, as I'd said, luckily for Covishield, it doesn't have much of an impact. But for Covovax, which is our next candidate, we want to stockpile and scale up. In fact, from this month, we are facing a lot of shortages. Through the media, I think the US administration and President Biden has replied and sort of responded, saying that we understand it, we acknowledge it, and the diplomatic channels between India and the US are working out what can be done. So far, there's been no relief on that, but at least the good news is that the US government has responded very positively to say that they are looking at it, and you know, I will leave it for the diplomatic channels between the two countries to resolve it on both sides. And maybe in a month or so they can ease certain raw materials to come. But again, the importance of this is we need it now. We don't need it after 3 or 4 months once we've made arrangements with other suppliers who are going to supply this to us. It's only for a temporary period that we need it now for the next 3 months to make a large stockpile of Covovax and other US-based vaccines. I know that Johnson & Johnson also needs these raw materials. We have other vaccine manufacturers in India trying to make the Johnson & Johnson product. They will also face shortages, and they've made this also very vocal, that they've been vocal about this, that they also need these raw materials. So I hope the US changes their stand on it and eases the restrictions soon.
By when do you hope to sell in the Indian market your second vaccine candidate, the Covovax? What's the status at present? By when do you hope to take it out to the people?
I had always said September, but now with the relaxation of the clinical trials not being made mandatory, we may look at revising an earlier timeline for that product. But, you know, until I finish some basic testing and some preliminary data from my trials that have already begun, I would not be comfortable launching this product in India or anywhere in the world till I've completed a certain stage of my clinical study, you know, just based on the ethical stands and the quality norms that we have. And I think that is still about 3 months away from today. But the good news is that we will be stockpiling the product until then. So in 3 months, when we have those results, you know, we'll have a large stock to just immediately supply away to the country.
Now, you have a very big team of scientists at the Serum Institute, and you're looking carefully at the efficacy of the product that you're delivering to the people of India. There have been multiple reports, which I'm sure have come to you as well, of people who've had both doses and a month passed after the dose getting reinfected. Earlier you said it's like a bulletproof jacket. It doesn't prevent the infection, it ensures you don't end up in hospital. My question now is, what are your scientists telling you about the mutation, especially this Indian double mutation, and the impact it has on your virus? Is there something about this current mutation that India is dealing with which makes it escape the antibodies that have been created by Covishield?
So we're still waiting to get more data on how that would work, but so far I can only share the facts. The facts are that we have seen enough of this so-called double mutant, which is now very visible in India as well and spreading fast, and we have seen enough cases of this double mutant. So what I mean to say is that if you look at the fact that around 8 to 10 crore doses have already been given of Covishield to Indians in India, how many of those people we would really have to see have been hospitalized with the double mutant disease? And that's where we will get to see how effective Covishield is against the double mutant versus the original strains of the virus, the Wuhan strain and UK strain or whatever. So as we see that in India, I'm sure your team also will be able to get the cases out where you can see very clearly, and this is what the good news and the silver lining is. I at least have not seen more than 2 or 3% of anyone who's got Covishield having to be hospitalized with the new strains. In total, I think we're still less than 10% of people who have received Covishield have had to be hospitalized. So we're seeing a 90% efficacy of Covishield against all strains so far in India. So that is the total data at the moment, and you can have this verified. That in short, I again summarize that 90% of people, or rather more than 90% of people who have taken Covishield have not had to set foot into a hospital, having to take oxygen or any serious treatment, ventilators, etc. So that is the silver lining at the moment. Of course, you know, we'll have to wait and see how this disease progresses and further changes, but this is at least visible data that we're getting from hospitals at the moment with Covishield. And please, you know, do double check on that and, you know, tell everyone and your audiences the results.
But in a very common man's parlance, is this a shifting of the goalpost? Because when you came out first and others spoke, the understanding was, and maybe it is the way people processed what you said, that the vaccine, once you've got the vaccine, you're safe. Now the understanding seems to be that once you've got the vaccine, you are safe only from hospitalization. You're not necessarily safe from getting the infection, even if you've had both your doses and a month has lapsed.
Yeah, so I mean, none of the vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, all these vaccines globally that we've seen licensed today, they don't prevent the infection. They just prevent hospitalization up to a certain level. And all I'm saying is that we're seeing in India that Covishield is protecting more than 90% against hospitalizations. And look, let me tell you, the whole intention of the vaccine was to prevent death and save lives and de-burden the congestion at the hospitals and on the healthcare system. And that is what is happening. So that is the success story of these vaccines. And I mean, look, no drugs, even if you get a flu tomorrow, for example, you take an antibiotic, you take any other drugs, it doesn't resolve the situation 100% immediately. It takes some time. Some drugs even don't work. Let's look at the efficacy of remdesivir or favipiravir or any of these drugs. So there is no 100% solution today for this terrible disease. What we're able to do is reduce the burden on the hospitals, which is a major issue and shortage of beds. What we're able to see with the vaccine is that your life is out of danger. And, you know, that's the success story so far. And that is a major win as far as vaccines are concerned. In fact, you know, I didn't even know if this was going to be possible if you asked me this question 3 or 4 months ago. But now, with 8-9 crore doses being administered to Indians here in front of our eyes in India with Covishield, that is very visible, and that indeed is good news. That is exactly why we need to ramp up as soon as possible all vaccines, so that we can reduce the burden on hospitals, reduce the burden on oxygen supply, and all of this situation.
What is the latest update that you've got from your scientists about incidence of blood clotting after somebody got a AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine? In Europe it became a big issue. In other countries, because of the fear of blood clotting, the AstraZeneca vaccine was put on hold. In India so far, Mr. Poonawalla, how many such blood clotting incidents have been reported back to you?
I don't think it's exceeded more than 1 or 2 in a million. If that, and I'd have to check the figures. I don't think it's even that much, which basically means you're 10 times as likely to die or have a fatal incident with a car accident, and probably 20 times the incidence of getting COVID yourself and having a serious issue. So the benefits here clearly outweigh the risks by a factor of 10 or 20 times. So if you look at car accidents, getting COVID itself, and dying or being hospitalized, you know, the blood clots is 1/10 as likely and serious compared to that. And look, all the vaccines have got this issue of rare blood clots which happen in a given population size. You know, so we've taken per million, whether it's Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, the other vaccines which I won't mention, they all have, you know, this incidence. And it's a common phenomena, far less in all cases, and all the vaccines are safe as far as the blood clotting thing is done. And all the regulators have, you know, statistically analyzed the data, linked the data, and come out with these statistics, which now all these reports are available for anyone to read, and with full transparency and debate upon.
Now, the Pfizer CEO was quoted in the American media recently as having said that they're working on a third booster dose which may be required a few months later to take care of the new strains and to ensure continuing immunity. Do you know how long does the antibody built by the Covishield last? Do we know whether we'll need a third dose? Are you working on an updated version of your Covishield vaccine given the strains that we are seeing?
I think, you know, we are working on an updated version of the vaccine, certainly, and we're also working on giving the vaccine to a lower age group, you know, below the age of 18. We're working on that. We'll get some news and data in a few months on that. Regards to the first part of your question, I think we still need to wait another few months before we can answer that, because we are seeing excellent results and protection up to 8 months with Covishield. So if we see that there's a substantial drop after that, we may look at recommending a third booster dose. But at the moment, we don't see the need for that. And we're trying to keep it just as a 2-dose regime. Let's wait and see what happens. At the moment, 2 doses looks to be enough. But after a year, we may need to introduce a third dose as a booster. The good news is AstraZeneca could also be combined as a second or third dose with other vaccines, and trials for that is on. We heard some reports about Sputnik. Once that data is available, you know, we can formally announce that yes, the 2 vaccines can be combined. That'll be a major help to India as well, because 1 dose of Sputnik and 1 dose of AZ and Covishield is compatible. But I don't want to make that statement till, you know, the regulators have approved that. These are all the sort of synergies that we see with all the different vaccines coming about. So, you know, we will see a little bit of relaxation and positivity.
Now, how will this work? Because just it's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned this, because one of Delhi's top doctors was talking to me this morning, and the point that he made is that because Covishield is a spike protein vaccine, getting a second dose of a whole virus vaccine may actually ensure better immunity. Are you also now veering around to the view that this cocktail of 1 Covishield followed by a second, whether it is a Sputnik or it is a Bharat Biotech vaccine may actually prove to be more useful, because it kind of helps you build immunity to both circumstances, not just the spike protein, but also as a whole inactivated virus?
Yeah, I don't know whether it'll be improving the status quo. I hope it does. That'll be great. But it'll certainly make things easier based on shortages and availability of different vaccines, including Covishield, that it becomes compatible with other vaccines. So that'll open up things far more than they are today. Because today, you know, sometimes in certain hospitals or states, we are seeing a shortage of Covishield or another vaccine like Covaxin or Sputnik or whatever when it comes. You know, it will definitely improve the flexibility for a patient to go in there and get different vaccines for their second dose or even third dose. But look, till the trials are done to combine these vaccines, I don't want to make any irresponsible statements to say that that is possible today. We have to wait, let the regulators decide this and announce this. But I'm just saying this is what we can look forward to in the coming months, in the short term, with what I'm hearing from the scientific community.
And finally, what do you have to say to Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, the Gavi Foundation, everybody else internationally who had high hopes of getting doses from India, getting doses from the Serum Institute, which was part of your contract, which now, because of the acute demand for the vaccines in India, is not possible? You're being sued by many countries, people are upset. So how are you dealing with that, and what do you have to say?
Nothing. I'll let you know when I come back from the UK how it goes. But, you know, the bottom line is that they all have to understand, and they are understanding. They've been very supportive, everybody, that they know and understand our needs in India, and they're hopeful that in the after the next 2 or 3 months, slowly some exports can resume, and you know, eventually India will resume exports. It's just a matter of when. It's a matter of when we can get ahead of the pandemic and reduce the cases here in India, and then we look forward to some exports after a few months. So we all have to be patient. There's nothing beyond that we can do or explain to anybody.
And are you in touch with colleagues at Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson? They haven't put out clear statements yet. Do you know when these international vaccines will be available in India from, Mr. Poonawalla?
I think now that the government has opened up on the pricing and private market sales, certainly all these other companies you mentioned, I'm sure would probably find India a very good market to partake in. And yes, hopefully, you know, I don't know these companies, I don't deal with them, but I'm sure that they will probably reapply based on the fact that they don't need to do clinical trials, number one, and number two, there is scope to sell at a higher price than the original 150 rupees that was being sold with the government. So I think these companies will very soon provide their products to India, which is a great thing. And thanks to the Modi ji's decision on opening all this up, we will see new vaccines and options being available to consumers in India very soon.
Okay, I'm going to leave it over there. We'll track your trip to the United Kingdom closely. Let's see how you're able to deal with this issue of AstraZeneca wanting to suspend production of the Covishield in India on account of the inability to export. Thank you very much for your time and wish you all the best. This is Adar Poonawalla, Chief Executive Officer of the Serum Institute, speaking to India Today. Thanks.